Yes, welcome, welcome. It is Thursday at 3 p.m., so we're going to start shortly. But before we dig in, TAPtalks is an interview and Q&A series where we talk to working professionals who do things in the arts. Specifically for a teen audience, but if you're not a teen, that's cool. Stick around, I'm sure you'll get a kick out of it too. So here, Teen Arts Pass, if you don't know what that is already, it is it's this amazing program. Teens get the chance to see live performances all over the Chicago area for only $5, but if you missed the news lately, pretty much everything is closed thanks to COVID-19 and just staying safe, being calm, being cool. So we wanted to do something a little bit different. So, today's guest on TAPtalks is Fareine Suarez. Fareine is a digital content producer based in Chicago's Rogers Park neighborhood. She works in higher ed marketing to pay the bills and freelances as a videographer and photographer to fund her travel addiction. In her spare time, she scuba dives, rock climbs, plays board games, and dabbles in the theater. I'm about to bring her on, but if you have any questions as we're going, feel free to write it below or do one of those question thingies down below too, and we'll get to what we can. Great. Fareine is connecting.
Hello.
Hey. Welcome to TAPtalks.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. It mixes up my day of like staying inside and watching TV.
Absolutely. For those who are joining us, and also, you know, that bio is amazing, but can you tell us more about what your job is?
Yes. So my day job, which is actually working at a local university, is an enrollment marketing manager. So I basically just oversee all of our communications and marketing for undergraduate admissions, oversee a lot of the recruiting communication that goes out, both digitally and in print, because our parents do still check the mail, unlike the rest of us.
Wow. How has that changed with the goings-on?
Yeah, so for one, like we are definitely not working out of the office. I'm actually working from home right now. And it really differs from university to university as well. Our current our university right now is still open. So classes are going on. We've moved everything online, and we have a pretty big international population. So those students, as well as students who can't afford to go home or don't have a home to go to off campus, are still living on campus. And so essential staff, that being student services, anyone who works in student health, they're still on campus as well. So we're making do as much as possible, but the situation has definitely, I think, like shaken things up and has kind of forced us to get creative with making sure that everyone's taken care of.
Oh, great answer. And thank you for shedding a little bit of light to that, because I know that, I mean, everything's a little bit different right now, and I know that there are teens out there who are looking forward to, they're looking forward to a lot of things, but also summer's getting closer and school years calming down, and then some of them want to go into a different school life in the fall. So anything that you can say to help with those questions is great as we keep along here. But before we get too far into that, I do want to ask you about the other things that you do, because I know that during the day, like in your bio, you do all of this amazing marketing work, but I know you have all the things outside of the workday that you do.
Yeah, so the funny thing is I actually graduated college during the 2008 recession. So it's like crisis after crisis. I think if you live long enough and you're lucky to live long enough, then you'll have to face a few of those big global emergencies, which keeps things definitely interesting. But when I graduated college, I had actually studied digital video for the first time. And this is back when smartphones didn't exist yet. And Facebook wasn't really open to the public either. So it was a very, very different world. And it was funny because as I was exploring and trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, I had no clue. I still have no clue, FYI. But I ended up freelancing for a bunch of different companies, one being an advertising agency, doing some video editing and whatnot for them. And that is what kind of propelled me into marketing and working as a full-time marketer. But I never was able to quite let go of the freelance part of the job. I loved just the idea of starting my own business, designing my own logos, coming up with my own brand and building a website. And so that's kind of what got me into freelance photography and into building a freelance business as well. And as I worked with more clients and worked with more people, I ended up falling into the world of community theater. And that's what got me into stage management and doing a lot of other production management type work. And I've kind of gone back and forth on working a 9-to-5 office job full time and then doing the theater side project after work. And so it'd be like the boring job in the day, and then you go into like explore my passions at night. But you could also imagine that like working 12 hours a day, no matter how much you love your job, does get exhausting because you do need sleep sometimes. So I would say right now, I've scaled back a little bit on the freelance work. I do have a couple of weddings that I am shooting this summer, and a few like kind of side projects that I'm running. I do have a travel blog that I write to kind of document all the fun travel stuff that I am not currently doing because you should be staying at home. But if the coronavirus was not a thing, that would be actually what I would be doing at the moment.
That kind of touched on my next question, which is how did you find yourself in this line of work? But how would you say that all of this ties together? Like, do you doing all of these things at night or during the breaks from your 9-to-5? Does that relate back to the everyday hustle, and do they influence each other at all?
Absolutely. I think at the end of the day, the one thing that everything that I do, whether it's a hobby or whether it's my full-time job, has in common is that element of storytelling. And so I kind of use those skills in everything I do from the day to day. A lot of times with marketing, especially marketing for an office environment, you're not necessarily working on video or social media, but that doesn't mean that there's the potential to incorporate that and incorporate things that you have fun with on the job. And I've been lucky enough to work with like several nonprofits and several smaller companies that give you that flexibility to define your role. Yes, you do have that job description and those bullet points that you have to meet and goals that you have to meet at the end of the day. But if you can do your job well and you can manage your time well, then that'll leave the trust with your supervisor and also the time within your job to explore other things that you enjoy and incorporate that into your job somehow.
I like it. So you have this basic framework, I guess, of core responsibilities that you have, but when you do that, you also have some wiggle room to do things that you're like really interested in, or to try out different things that maybe you wouldn't necessarily get to do in a different line of work. What would you say are some of the coolest projects or favorite projects that you've done across the board?
Ooh, that's a really good question. So a couple things come to mind. One of the first jobs that I had was working at that ad agency. And through that ad agency, I met a lot of different creatives like web developers, copywriters, and just people who needed to pay the bills, and that's why we were in that office, but also liked working on like creative side projects. And so one of my coworkers had written this short film about an astronaut stuck in space. And so a group of us got together and decided, like, let's make the short film come to life. So we actually used our office space. The CEO of the company was like generous enough to let us go in on the weekends when we weren't open and use it, since it was like a big open area and we had lighting that we used in the studio anyways for work. And so he gave us permission to use all of that. And my coworkers, like, they were big into costuming, and so they put together this like big orange janitor's suit of hair, and so dressed it up to make it look like an astronaut outfit, complete with like patches and a fake logo for like this fake like starship company that they created. And we took these cardboard boxes and built out this like tiny little spaceship with aluminum foil. And so from far away, it obviously looked like we were playing like with a fort or like building a fort or something. It looked fake. But when you actually like brought the camera in close up and like played with the lighting a little, added some gels and some color, it actually looked like the guy was in space. And so that was a lot of fun to just like work with all of these people that you see on day to day, like at their computers, like doing all these like really buttoned up businessy stuff, but then see them on a weekend to like create this entire set that didn't even look like it was on Earth. And we did it on such a low budget too, because like we obviously weren't trying to make money off of the short film. We filmed the entire thing in 2 days over the weekend and submitted it to a few internet film festivals, and it got in. So that was a really cool experience, just in the like bonding capacity with coworkers and then like learning new things.
Wow, that just goes to show that, one, you never know what people have going on outside of work, like what they're interested in or what things you might have in common. And two, that sounds like an amazing team building exercise, and it just sounds like it happened sort of naturally, like it wasn't forced on you, like, make this film together. You just did it.
Mm-hmm. And the cool thing too about working with a bunch of creatives is like someone is always going to know someone else. So I think that the one person we didn't really know was someone who would be able to do some wiring and finagle some lights. We didn't know an electrician. So one of my coworkers was like, actually a pal of mine is like really, really into tinkering, like these little toy lights and like LEDs and stuff like this. This was also back when LEDs were really expensive and not as frequently used. But they brought their electrician friend in who wasn't really into film sets at all. It was just like, this is just a hobby, building lights. And he was able to light the set in a way that I don't think we would have been able to on our own.
Wow, that is so cool. I love how just, intersecting interests don't necessarily have to be directly involved in the theater. Like that person was not a lighting designer. They just took what they knew, brought it to the project, and just literally illuminated what else was going on.
Yeah, and I think that's the important thing about creative projects too, is like you can have someone who has the idea and the drive to make something, and this is, I think, applicable to the stage and the theater too, but it takes like an entire village to get all the details just right.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, Fareine, I have so many questions for you. Hold on. Okay. Tell me a little bit about teenage you and what you wanted to be when you grew up.
Oh my gosh, teenage me was such an emo, okay, so I thought I was like very artsy and poetic, and I definitely shopped at Hot Topic. I had like the baggy jeans with the chains and everything, and I kept a live journal. For those who don't know what live journal is, it existed before MySpace was a thing, and if you don't know what MySpace is, that existed before Facebook was a thing. So LiveJournal was cool basically before all these other social media platforms were cool. So I wrote in a LiveJournal every day. I also had a fake LiveJournal that I kept track of all my dreams. And so I considered myself a huge writer. I loved storytelling, and that's what I did at home mainly. And then at school, I was super involved in the orchestra and in the drama club, surprise, surprise. And I really, really wanted to be a journalist when I grew up. I loved reading fashion magazines. I was really, really into taking all of the like quizzes that you would find in like Cosmo, like Teen Cosmo and whatnot. So I wasn't like super into like hard hitting journalism because, you know, it was the early aughts. And so like it was funny because when I went to college and my first major was in print journalism, and I remember walking into my media art 101 class, and the first thing the professor said was, so print journalism is dying and you guys need to learn how to adapt. And that was scary because I was like, well, if I can't be a writer, then what can I be? Like, my dad always told me that writers didn't make any money and I would live in a cardboard box if I just majored in English. So I ended up switching my major to broadcast journalism, which naturally dived into video directing and producing, which is what I ultimately ended up graduating and getting my bachelor's degree in. But it was a tough road. I was in high school from like 2001 to 2005, and in college from 2005 to about 2009. And so those 8 years, like technology changed so much. But the one constant that I always had throughout all those weird changes in technology and how people communicated and expressed themselves was my love for storytelling and my love for music.
Wow. All right. So you've kind of been making yourself go in this direction, but it did change significantly as, you know, things were thought to be dying out and you adapted, just like we're adapting right now. Wow. So did you imagine yourself being where you are today?
Nope, not at all. I mean, I went to high school in this like really suburban southeastern Virginian like city, and I always aspired to like move to New York City and live like that like artsy urban life. But it actually took me until I was 27 to move to Chicago. So like that was almost a decade of really trying to find myself after graduating college. And there was a time where I was more concerned with finding the perfect job and kind of climbing that career ladder and checking all the boxes of like what makes and defines a successful adult, that I kind of lost sight for a while what I enjoyed. I had that imposter syndrome working my first job and feeling like, well, I'm not contributing anything of value to society if I'm just doing art or making art or working in advertising, which is like the lowest, grossest form of art, which is what young me definitely thought. And so I ended up pivoting and going to get my master's degree in higher education. And so that like kind of led me down this more corporate buttoned up path too, which I didn't necessarily like as well. And so I think I spent a good amount of my 20s like kind of in this like weird crisis, trying to figure out if what I was doing was worthwhile. And at the end of it all, I realized that like it's not healthy to define your identity around your career. And that's actually like something that I wish that younger me knew, and something that I will actively always tell, like especially students going from high school to college or students graduating from college into this environment. Obviously the economy is not doing well, and I totally understand all the anxiety that a lot of people are feeling surrounding job stability and what they're going to do and how are they going to find stability with everything and all the uncertainty that's going on. And I think the most important thing is just to remember that you are not defined by what you do, and you are not defined by the things that you accomplish. Like your job title is just one facet of who you are, but who you are is like so much more than that.
Oh, just gave me chills. I totally do. Oh, I too have felt that as a young person going into some of my first jobs. So thank you for saying that. Um, Everything's just wild. So what a good reminder. Wow. Um, I'll ask more about that in a little bit. But just to break it up, I'm going to give you some easy things to answer, right?
Okay,
Ready?
great.
Okay. Netflix or Hulu? Or other?
Netflix,
Great. Coffee or tea?
coffee.
Tortilla chips or potato chips?
Oh, that is hard. It depends on if you have sour cream and onion dip or salsa.
Okay, I had to think about it for a second, but I feel you. Summer or winter?
Fall.
Nice. Comedy or drama?
Ooh, I don't know. I really, really like dark comedies and I really, really like just irony. So I don't think I would pick strictly one or the other.
Yes. I appreciate that you're going like somewhere in between. Um, what else? Ability to fly or to pause time?
Ooh. Okay, I feel like I would get into so much trouble if I paused time. Like A, I would waste a lot of time, but then also B, I think I might snoop and spy on way too many people. So maybe just for ethical reasons and to keep myself in check, the ability to fly.
Great. We'll keep that on the list. Make sure you never get to pause time. Oh, that felt good. So back to it. Is there anything that you would attribute to your success?
Ooh, well, A, I don't think I like necessarily define myself as a successful person. I think that I I willingly embrace most challenges that are thrown towards me. I think actually the one thing that I have a lot of trouble with is saying no to a new opportunity because embracing new opportunity means you might learn a new skill. You might meet someone new who will introduce you to something else that you might be interested in or might help you grow. Um, or you just might learn something new about yourself. So yeah, I guess like if I had to say like what I would attribute to my successes would be just like the keeping an open mind and being able to navigate new and uncharted territory. And also just like not being afraid to fail or not being afraid to hit roadblocks. I think like, especially when you're young and when you commit to a situation, you feel that pressure to stick it out until the end and to meet those commitments. And I think like that is a really good character builder and like that's a really good trait to have because you don't want to slack and you don't want to like let people down either. But at the end of the day is like you're never going to be stuck in a situation where you're going to be in it forever. Like change is the one constant in our lives. It's inevitable. The stuff that I'm doing right now in my life and like the situation that we're all in right now, it's just it's temporary. It's going to change. It's going to evolve. Parts of it will get worse. And eventually things will get better. But at the end of the day, like change is always going to be there. So learning how to be resilient and learning how to just navigate it and be able to step back at the end and see how you've grown from that, I think is a really, really valuable asset.
So much good advice. For those who are here with us, this is TAPtalks. We're talking to Fareine about her career and just, what it means to live life with here Teen Arts Pass, amazing program for teens, especially in the Chicago area, but not just the Chicago area. Our time is dwindling, so if there are any questions, feel free to drop them below, and we'll try and get to them in the next few minutes. But so far, so good. Farron, do you have any role models?
Do I have any role models? That's also a really good question. I think it was hard growing up because so like my mom was super, super traditional. And it was funny because the thing that she would always tell me as a kid and as a teenager was don't be like me, like be super independent, get your own job, be able to pay your own bills, like don't make me your role model. And so that's hard as a kid to have your own mom and be like, I'm not your role model, find someone else. But when I ended up working at that ad agency, I keep on coming back to that because that first job out of school was probably the most influential job that I had. My boss, who was a male, I do wish that I had a stronger female role model, but my boss, he was this younger 27-year-old guy who had struggled for about 5 years trying to make it as an artist after school before ending up in Virginia. And he and his wife were just the most caring individuals I had ever met. They're the ones who like kind of instilled those values to like always try new things and always say yes to helping out with projects, even though the money might not be there, because you never know what you're going to learn from it. And he was like always the most hardworking, resilient person. And so he actually ended up growing his own company. He ended up quitting that ad agency and just like building his own company. And he's employed like over 10 people in the Virginia Beach area now. And they do a lot of like corporate advertising gigs, but then they also spend so much time like working on these like elaborate films that are really, really great. And they actually won a few international awards. Their work was shown over at the Cannes Film Festival in France a couple years ago. And so like, I think just like really quirky, artsy people who aren't afraid to try new things and aren't afraid to teach people and be mentors are my favorite types of people. Because like you can have a really talented person who doesn't really want to teach you, and you can have teachers who are really afraid to go beyond education. And I feel like it is really hard to find someone who can do all of those things and be patient with you too.
Great answer. I love that. I keep hearing things about don't be afraid to fail, try things, make mistakes. Just like keep going and doing the thing, and you'll figure it out. And it's okay. With that being said, I have one more question for you.
All right.
You've already mentioned it, but what would you want to share with teenage Fareine? And is there anything that you would want to share with teens out there who might be interested in doing what you do or doing some of the things that you have done?
Yeah, things will turn out okay. If you end up in a challenging situation where you're either facing failure or you're feeling like an imposter, remember that your life is not defined by that one moment. Use it as an opportunity to grow, and also just like remember that everything is so temporary, and that's what makes life so scary, but that's also what makes life so much fun. If the situation that you're in, it just makes you want to cry, then that's fine, cry, it'll pass. If that situation that you're in makes you so happy and so passionate and so excited, like hang on to it and remember how that feels so that you can embrace it when it comes to you again, no matter how long that is.
Oh, thank you so much, Fareine. That was wonderful. And thank you for joining us for Tap Talks today, too. I'm going to go ahead and close out the show for today. Everyone, this was Tap Talks here with Teen Arts Pass. We will be back on Tuesday next week. We are going to talk with Brandon from our Teen Council, who has done all kinds of amazing things, including playing cello right next to Yo-Yo Ma, having his own podcast, and like a bajillion other things. I can't wait, and neither should you. But thanks again, and have a wonderful weekend.
Bye, thanks.
Bye.